Final part, I told my parents that they were horrible and they shouldn't have more kids. My father sent me a text early in the morning warning me about the fact that he was going to confront my mother and that he didn't want anything to splash to me, and reassured me that he believed me completely, and I braced myself because I expected for her to call me berating me or something. I truly don't care about what she thinks, but these past few days have been emotionally draining and I wasn't sure if I was ready for another full-blown out confrontation. Using Reddit to vent has been helpful though. After a few hours my mother pulled into our house and let herself in, screaming like mad and calling me every name in the book, saying I had ruined her relationship and asking me why had I been blabbing about private matters that don't concern anybody. I said that my childhood matters to me and my father, who is also going to be the future father of her child, and that her actions ruined her relationship. She called me an a-hole and said I was the biggest effing mistake she's ever done in her life. I didn't know she could still hurt me, but that was a low blow, and I said that I would do anything in my power to take her baby away from her because she was a monster of a mother. We were screaming at this point and my grandparents, who were in the backyard, must have heard us, and entered the room and separated us and heard part of the fight. I was fighting tears and my grandma walked me upstairs to my room as my grandpa screamed to my mother, "How dared speak to me that way?" My grandma soothed me a little and then went to confront my mother with my grandpa. I heard from the door how they ripped my mother a new one. They confronted her for telling me the things that she did, for treating me like garbage all my life, and for lying to my father. They told her how disappointed they were in her for always treating me with disgust and how many excuses they made for her, thinking she was a child trying to raise a child, but she was now an adult and her behavior continued the same, and they said they were on the path of disinheriting her. My mother was screaming about how hard it had been for her and how much she hurt, but my grandparents were having none of that. They raised me and she was allowed to have the life she wanted and to take all the decisions she wanted without repercussions ever, and I even heard them say that if there was any custody battle ensued over the baby to come, they would take the father's side unless she radically changed everything about her behavior. They went outside for a while, so I don't know what they said, but eventually they came into my room and my grandparents looked extremely serious and my mother was red and crying and apologized to me through gritted teeth. I didn't respond, but my grandparents said on her behalf that she was going to start therapy immediately and she was no longer welcome in the house. I called my father after the debacle and he was furious. He talked to my mother before going to a work meeting thing or something, and he confronted her about everything. Apparently it was nasty, but he was willing to work on the relationship for the good of the baby on the condition that my mother would also be working on improving her relationship with me so that whenever I visited them I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. After he left he made her promise she wouldn't contact me until they talked again, but there's my mother for you folks. I asked him to think about what's better for himself and for the baby and to not hold today against my mother if he doesn't want to. Also, a thing that has come up a lot in the comments of my previous posts is that my progenitors only want me as a babysitter and that I should steer away from them and baby for my own sake, but I want to make a point about that. I can't say anything about their intentions, I know nothing about that, but I am really very excited to have a sibling. Growing up I had a very small family, it was just my grandparents and me. On my paternal side I had a huge family with aunts, uncles and cousins, but whenever I went there I always felt like the odd one out. They tried to include me and invited me for Easter, Christmas, BBQs and stuff, but I didn't really know them, and although they were nice I always felt like I had a big sign on my head that said that Kid John had in high school. I can't wait to have a sibling and love them and always be there for them and show them what a family is. I want to be that person they can always rely on for them, and I want to feel that bond with someone, so even if I have my misgivings about my parents, and I do, a lot, I do not, about being a big brother.